Welcome to the Fitgenes podcast with Dr. Sam Shay, DC, functional medicine certified professional and Fitgenes certified practitioner. Your genes are your most powerful blueprint. It holds the story of how your body truly works. This show is here for one reason: to decode your DNA, making genetics practical, guiding you towards your best nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle choices. Whether you're a health seeker, a lifelong learner, a practitioner, or a health coach ready to go deeper, this is your place to make sense of genetics. Together, we'll cut through the noise, turn data into insight, and help you communicate with confidence so you can create real change in yourself and in those you support. Each episode breaks down complex genetics into clear, usable frameworks you can actually apply. So stop guessing, start decoding, and let's dive into today's episode. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Fitgenes podcast. And today I'm here with my co-host Mikayla and
Hello.
Of course Lily.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Today we're going to dive into CarbChoice, which arguably is one of the most impactful and important components of genetics testing. Everything is important, but this one had a profound effect not only on you, Dr. Shay, but also on myself and lots of clients. So can you just tell us, what is CarbChoice? What are we talking about?
Sure. So when we're talking about what is the most impactful thing that we can actually have control and agency over for our health, for our longevity or well-being, and it's our diet. And everyone and their mother has three different opinions about diet depending on the time of day.
Mm-hmm. And their aunt and their sister.
Yeah, just everyone. And
yeah.
I would much rather understand what is the genetic foundation of someone's diet, and then look at what's the genetic reality.
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that are hard-coded into my genes that create very clear boundaries around diet. And if you're watching the video, Lily is like literally doing like a push-up.
Cannot be bothered. She's like, oh, we're talking about CarbChoice.
She's like, are we talking about food and you're not feeding me? This is cruel. Okay, got it. Wow. This is hi, Lily. Okay.
And back to our scheduled programming.
Probably not. Lily's this is now Lily's program at this point. So we're talking about carbs, and carbs are obviously one of the macronutrients. And when people talk about, oh, I'm Paleo, I'm Keto, I'm Mediterranean, I'm do better on higher carbs. Like, well, how do you know?
Yeah.
How do you actually know? And luckily, there's a gene called the AMY1 gene, AMY1. Mm-hmm. That is the gene that codes for salivary amylase. And amylase is the enzyme that's predominantly made, like most of it's made in the parotid gland. It's a large, the cheeks have a large gland, and there's other salivary glands, but the big one is the parotid gland, and it makes this enzyme.
Which is why chewing is important.
Chewing is important, and make sure you're enjoying your food and it smells good, because then it triggers salivation. And this enzyme breaks down carbohydrates on first contact. And if you don't break down carbohydrates in the saliva properly, then the carbohydrates don't get properly digested, and then that causes all sorts of problems in the digestive tract, gas, bloating, like bad bacteria see this buffet of not properly digested carbs, and then they chew on it and they create their own ecosystem. Yeah. And if people are eating too many carbs for their genetic tolerance, then they can have what I did, which is just have these big fluctuations of energy, mood, and digestive problems throughout the day. So people who are genetically lower carb, they do better on higher fat diets. And if they have too many carbs, their insulin spikes much higher. It's really interesting that the fewer the paper that I read is the fewer number of these copies of these genes of amylase, the higher the insulin will spike to more rapidly absorb. Whereas people who have many copies of this gene will have a much slower, consistent drip of insulin.
And can you actually talk on the copies for a moment?
Absolutely, yes. The best way to think about this is that we're not talking about a variation test. We're not talking about green, yellow, red. We're not talking about the version of the gene.
Yeah, different from the other
genes we've been talking about. So this is a unique test because we're not looking at green, yellow, red. We're looking instead at the number of duplicates, the number of copies. And so there's two metaphors that are quite useful. The best one is, imagine your digestive system is a fort, and there are Vikings called carbs charging the fort.
Okay.
The number of cannons lining the fort is the number of copies of the AMY1 gene that then fire this amylase enzyme to mow down the carb/Vikings. So the more cannons I have, the more Vikings I can mow down. The fewer number of cannons, the fewer Vikings I can mow down. Now,
and the cannons are the copies.
The cannons are the copies. So AMY1 can have duplicates of the same gene. Now, from an evolutionary biology standpoint, people talk about the genes will change by mutation to have adaptation. Well, there's another way that you can adapt genetically, which is simply to make more copies of the same gene.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to mutate the gene in some specific way. Because when you look at the distribution of the number of copies of this gene in different parts of the world and in different genealogical lineages, different lineages, then you can actually see the trends. So, for example, one of the first big clinics that did this was in Melbourne, Australia, run by Dr. Paul Beaver, who was the chief science officer of Fitgenes and one of the co-founders back. It's back in the mid 2000s, I think. And then CarbChoice was introduced, I believe, 2012, 13, something like that. And there was a clinic in Melbourne, and there's a lot of Maori, Pacific Islander, and Aborigine that are in Melbourne, and that the number. So for context, the number of copies you can have is between 1 and 20. So you can have between 1 and 20 cannons lining this fort. Okay. The more cannons you have, the easier it is to mow down the carbs. The fewer, the harder it is. Right. What he found was that in the populations that did not have an extended history with agriculture, like Maori, like Pacific Islander, like Aborigine, the copy numbers hover between 1 and 4, which is very low. Which is low. And so, and then I have a copy number of a 2. I have the second lowest possible. Now, my ancestry is from northern Russia, where not a lot of grows up there. Right. So, and it's also fat dominant. Hunting. Yeah. And so when you look at, you can make guesses from genealogy. There's a lot of people in China who have done this test. They have an average of an 8. So, and then if you look at the food. Well, it's a rice culture. It's a rice culture. Yeah. And for 5,000 plus years. So you have people who say, well, genes can't mutate that fast. It's not mutating, it's duplicating. Yeah. There is an adaptation. It's an adaptation. Yeah. So in Europe, it's like about a 6, 5, 6. And definitely agricultural, but it's definitely not as heavy a rice culture as it is in China. So you can look, and then there's higher carbs. I think it was like West Africa, where there was the higher numbers even as well. So that's more. There's lots more agriculture. If you have higher copies, makes your ability to break down carbohydrates faster, and you're looking at more agrarian societies versus hunter-gatherer societies. In a hunter-gatherer society, you come across carbs much more rarely. Fruit trees or berry bushes or the occasional honeycomb. So in a hunter-gatherer society, there's a higher risk of acute starvation because you don't have like consistent stores of like grains held for months and months and months. That's one of the reasons why cities exist, is because we have grains and dairy which can be stored in cheeses or in silos. If you come across a source of carbs like the fruit trees, the berry bushes, or the honeycomb, you don't have a lot of time to absorb all those calories, because if it's like a raspberry bush, it's either the raspberries are gonna be gone from rot, mold, insects, other animals, bears, other tribes in the area, or people of your own tribe. So you've got a very short amount of time to stuff yourself with as many calories as possible, because if you gorge on enough carbs quickly, you can basically stave off starvation for another week or so. And so you would want a really high amount of insulin shot up in order to suck in as much of those carbs as possible.
Right.
Whereas if you're in an agrarian society and you've got kind of carbs kind of ambiently around all the time, you having a much slower, more consistent amount of insulin to not have your thing spike up, because you're not worried about storage so much. It's just more like consistency. Yeah. So with understanding the going back to the cannon analogy. Yeah. The more cannons you have, the easier it is to break down carbs. The fewer it is, the harder it is.
And it's synonymous with the higher carb number you have, i.e. more cannons, versus the lower carb number you have, less cannons.
So when now if we're going to talk about the version, that we talk about green, yellow, red, that's the version of the cannon, not the number of cannons. So like there is a green, yellow, and red cannon for the AMY1 gene, but this is one of those genes that the difference between the green, yellow, and red is pretty trivial. It actually doesn't really make that much of a difference if it's a green or yellow or red cannon. The big difference is in the number of cannons. Yeah. That's what matters.
And that's what this CarbChoice tests for.
Yeah. It's the number. Like I'll just pull a number out of the air. Like say like the red cannon is like 90 things of amylase per unit time. Yep. And then like the yellow is 95 and the green is 100. Well, I would rather have 9 red cannons than 1 green cannon.
Yeah, and that's true.
And the getting the number of duplicates of the AMY1 gene is a different test completely than the variation. It's a different machine. It's a different process.
And just for people who know, this is a separate
swab. Like
this is a separate cheek swab from all the other genetic results and testing.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So when people are doing like Fitgenes testing, there's 2 swabs. One is for all the variations for the other stuff we've talked about, and then one is just for CarbChoice. Yeah. To figure out the number of duplicates. So that's one analogy of the 4. The other analogy is like number of carb scissors. I mean, an enzyme is literally cutting up a thing. Yeah. So it is effectively.
I kind of think of it like a Pac-Man. To be honest, kind of.
So I mean, the only issue with the metaphor of Pac-Man is like the Pac-Man will actually swallow. Yeah. And actually, scissors is more accurately describing what's happening. Is you're actually cutting the carbs into smaller and smaller bits.
And separating. Yeah.
So it's the number of scissors you have running around to cut up the carbs. Now, for people that how is this relevant? So for people that are struggling with the question, what do I eat? And I've just tried all these different things and I'm just confused. I just want some data. Well, we can start with what your carb tolerance is. So people who have, the ranges are between 1 and 20. And the simplest breakdown is that if someone is a carb choice of a 1, they have 1 copy of this gene, they're more on the keto style diet. I haven't seen many ones in my career, and I've been running this test since 2016. And so I'm in my 11th year as of this recording. And I've seen, oh man, it's less than 10.
I would say
in my entire career, I've seen less than 10. It's really rare.
Even in our time working together, there was like one
Yeah, it was like a big day
time.
for us.
It was like, was it 18 or something crazy? It was really high, very rare.
Yeah. The far extremes are rare. Most people are hovering somewhere between 4 and 8, 4 and 7.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think about, one is more keto style,
Mm-hmm.
and then 2 to 4 copies is more paleo. Now, there's a big difference between a 2 and a 4. In fact, it's double. And the research shows that it's basically linear.
Yeah.
That if you have 1 copy, you make X amount. 2 copies, you make 2X amount. 4X, you make 4X amount of amylase. 8 copies make 8X. So it's basically linear. So someone who has a 4 has approximately double the amount of amylase production as someone who has 2 copies, and 4X the amount as someone who has 1 copy. So that's why it's like paleo style, and there are ranges. So I'm a 2, and that's very different, from someone who's a 4, but not as different as someone who's more Mediterranean.
Yeah, and I'm a 7.
Yeah.
So I am I'm the Mediterranean.
Yeah, you're more Mediterranean. So the Mediterranean ranges are between about 5 and 8, and a 5 is different than an 8, because a 8 is almost double a 5.
Yeah,
and then 9 and aboves, they're much more higher carb. And I'll give a couple stories. One is my own. Like I was eating a perfect Mediterranean style diet
per the literature, per everything that you've read.
That I was taught I was supposed to eat Mediterranean. I was supposed to be Mediterranean because that's what the research said. The research said this. The research said that.
And we're talking specifically about the carbs, just to clarify for everyone.
The carbs. It's not necessarily like you have to have like goat yogurt and fish. It's the amount of like Mediterranean diet is best understood as like a little bit of everything.
Right.
So with at the time, like the quality of my diet was great. It was all farmers market stuff. I knew the name of farmers and their chickens. Like it was Portlandia.
Pristine.
Basically. It was a Portlandia episode on my dinner plate.
Yeah.
But I was still having energy, mood, and digestive problems cycling through the day, and it was just really frustrating. And then I ran my genetics test, and it turned out I'm 2, and which means that I'm more in the low carb paleo. So, people say lots of redundancy, low carb paleo. Well, like a 2 is to me the lower carb version compared to the 4 paleo. So like a 5, I would call like a lower carb Mediterranean, and 8 is a higher carb Mediterranean. So within 1 week of changing my diet from like 6, 7 or so down to a 2, the digestion, mood, and energy fluctuations leveled out. And it's because I'm now operating within my genetic capacity to handle carbs.
And this is per meal time?
It's per meal, yeah.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that the people with the lower carbs, if they have too many, they have these like energy spikes and crashes. It's akin to like blood sugar spiking up and then spiking down. And then the indigestion, because it's like there's too many carbs that we can't properly process, and then the bacteria going to go haywire, and it creates indigestive problems. And then the consequence, the mood and the energy issues follow, because your neurotransmitters, most of your neurotransmitters to your brain are made in your gut. And then if you're having indigestion, that affects your energy, blah, blah, blah.
It's just a domino effect.
Yeah. So then we go to the other side of the equation. I had a client who was an amateur tennis player. Now, whenever anyone who understands tennis, an amateur tennis player is amongst the most athletic people out there. Like tennis players are no slouches.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the coolest X-rays, I used to teach X-ray analysis. One of the coolest X-rays you'll ever see is a comparison of Andre Agassi's racket arm versus his non-racket arm. And it's like this bionic, like, don't get me wrong, his non-racket arm is pretty impressive, but his racket arm is like something out of the Terminator.
Yeah.
So for context, like amateur tennis players, they are hyper athletic. Okay, he had run his genetics test. Then we're doing the report of findings, and I haven't even told him the results yet. And then he is volunteering to me. Before I say anything, he says, "Oh yeah, I just want to let you know, like, all my my tennis buddies, like they really wanted me to do keto.
Oh no.
So I tried keto, and I interrupted him, and I said, under no circumstances are you to do keto at all.
Ever. Yeah.
And he like stopped and just stared at me, and like I repeated myself. I says, do not do keto, because you are not genetically suited for keto.
Like, it's actually very, very detrimental.
He was a 13.
Oh yeah, that's extremely.
That's really high. Like I've only rarely seen 17s, 18. Like I think I've seen as many 17, 18s, 16s as I have ones.
Yeah.
Like so.
And just to clarify, the difference between a 2 or a 1 keto and a 13 high carb is an exponential.
Well, it's more of a log.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you're talking 13x the amount of
carbohydrate.
Approximately 13x the amount of enzyme that's coming out. So 9 and above are considered high carb.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him that I'm sorry your buddies keto shamed you into doing keto. Real. And he just like couldn't speak for a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly like he's kicked back in again. And he's like, I knew it. I felt awful. Now remember, he hadn't told me what had happened.
Yeah.
I said, before he even told me I'll share what he said. Before he even said a word about what he experienced, I interrupted and said, you should never have done that.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
And so he said, like, I felt awful. I was fainting on court.
Wow.
I couldn't concentrate. I felt weak. It was awful. I said, you're a higher carb metabolism.
Mm-hmm.
Like your enzyme load is more suited for a higher carb diet. I'm sure your friends who did keto, based on their genetics, had a genuinely positive experience.
Yeah.
I do better on a quasi keto diet because I'm a 2.
Right.
Even on the other, so for him, if he didn't have enough carbs, he was like spacing out.
Yeah, because his body's not able to utilize the fuel for energy. Yeah, it's like, where is it?
Yeah, he was a more of a carb based person genetically. So when people know their number, when they know their carb number, then they know how to actually divide up the plate to match what their carbs could be on a meal-to-meal basis.
Yeah.
So to make it practical, there's a couple of variables that go into, like, what do you do when you have your carb number? So say you run a genetics test, like what happened with your client that you just got the updated report yourself?
Oh, well, the client that I had that was a 13. So he is a younger male athlete, and he actually was struggling with performance. And he was like, he also kind of had this same realization when I told him, you're 13. You actually
He was also 13.
Yes, he was also a 13. Or no, sorry, he was a 10.
10, okay.
10. No, he was a 10. I just have 13 in my head because of the story. No, he was a 10, and his parents, not by fault of their own, have, been traditionally more lower carb. Whether it's a fear thing, whether it's diet culture, right? There's a lot there. But he was like, I just knew, like, I'm so fatigued. My output is just subpar. And I know, like, he just innately knew, kind of like the tennis player talking about. So within a week or two of him shifting and prioritizing and not being fearful of carbs and fueling pre and post workout, his workouts drastically changed. He said his power output, his recovery, everything drastically improved.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's it's so funny how low carb is now the thing that people are like overshooting on.
And sometimes I get people who say no carb. I'm like, what do you mean no carbs?
Well, it depends. So some people, so carnivore.
We should define.
Well, some people do extremely well on carnivore diet, particularly if they've got crippling autoimmune diseases and they need to minimize complexity in the digestive tract. I mean, this is not a discussion we're going to have on carnivore,
right.
But there are people who, like, I do better on a much higher fat and protein diet, and I'm a 2. I mean, that's justified.
Yeah.
And I feel better, and I do better. And if I have lots of carbs, I am a mess.
Is it possible to have somebody be a 10 per se carb tolerance and have these, maybe a crippling autoimmune condition in which carnivore or something low carb is more beneficial? Is that
okay? So now I have another model on diet, which is 5 layers of identifying your ideal diet. So the first layer is genetics. So that's your genetic foundation, and carb choice is part of that. Then there's food triggers is another, like, are you sensitive to histamine, alcohol, caffeine? I mean, we talked about caffeine quite a bit. Gluten, dairy, food intolerances, etc. Then there's also the genetics of your eating preferences. Some people craving the flavor and texture of fat. Some people, like, there's a genetic basis of your eating behaviors, whether it's satiety or sugar consumption. And then there's, like, the genetic basis of, like, do you need more specific nutrients? In others, like, do you need more fish oil or more
anti-inflammatories or something?
SOD inducers or whatever the nutrient class is that's been determined genetically. That's the foundational. Then the second layer is called what I call the metabolic layer. The metabolic layer is if someone has an existing present day condition that is screwing things up. So one example of that is someone let's say your client who has a carb choice of 10, but then at some point, for whatever reason, develops candida infection in his intestinal tract. So now you have a conflict between your genetic preference for high carbs and the metabolic reality that high carbs will make the candida worse. So this is what I call metabolic barbed wire. Where you have a metabolic issue that's wrapping around your genetic ideal like barbed wire. And so the question is like, well, what do you do if there's you actually, first you have to figure out your genetics. So you actually know what your genetic ideal and your foundation is. Then if you hit a plateau, if you're just doing genetic based protocols, hit a plateau and it's like, what's going on? Then you may have metabolic barbed wire, which then requires like functional testing or like gut testing or otherwise. And then you need to, if it is candida, you have a separate lifestyle, diet, nutrition plan
to address
to deal that. And it may be a very different looking diet because you're doing a diet for a therapeutic intervention, not genetic potential. It's a different,
and it is a hierarchy in the body. You have
it's not a hierarchy, it's a priority. It's a transient priority. So when someone has metabolic barbed wire, and you can see this by someone following, like they get their genetics reports, they're following the recommendations and they're improving, and then they plateau and then they get frustrated. It's like, why am I getting any better? And it's like, well, you may actually have metabolic barbed wire wrapping around your genetics that we have to figure out using functional testing to figure out what the metabolic barbed wire is, do a different set of protocols, lifestyle, diet, etc., defang the barbed wire, then you can return back to your genetic foundation. Now, this also works in the other direction. So if someone is a low carb like me, like I'm a 2, and I also have a problem with like pancreatic lipases or pancreatic proteases where I can't properly break down fat and protein, then eating high fat and protein, higher relative to a higher carb diet, if I eat a much higher protein and fat diet, but I have a metabolic issue where I can't break it down, now that's metabolic barbed wire.
Yeah.
And that's where like, okay, I have my genetic ideal over here, but I have a metabolic reality right now.
Yeah.
So now I have to look at what do I do to defang that barbed wire to then go back to my genetic ideal.
Yeah.
So people can have conflicting diets in the sense that one is good for the genetics, but not great for the present day metabolic issue or the reverse. And And you hear like, this is the person that says, I've tried every diet.
Yeah.
And none of them work. Well, whenever I hear that, I immediately think of metabolic barbed wire.
Yeah.
So with the two things I do, I run genetics testing and then encourage functional testing to see what's going on.
Yeah. Test, don't guess. We can't guess at these things.
Yeah. The third layer is preference for diet. So preference.
So genetics, metabolic,
and then preference.
And then preference.
Yeah, there's some genetic preferences in there, but preferences can be genetic. Like some people are super tasters and bitter. Some people are like, they like the taste of sweet. Some people are averse to the taste of sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Some people really crave the flavor and texture of fat. Others don't. That's a lot of genetics in there, and that's actually covered in the in the Fitgenes test.
Mm-hmm.
But other preferences are like cultural, religious,
social,
and your family, like where you grew up in. Like, oh, mom made XYZ, and so I love this food, or I hate this food.
Yeah.
For some people, here comes the plane was a good experience. And for others, it was terrible.
It was not. Yeah.
So you can design the best diet in the world based on the genetics and metabolism, but if they're like, I don't wanna. I mean, yes, you can try to do the emotional work and help them like mature a bit around, because if their priority is their health, then they may be able to override some of their aversions. But for some people, it's like, no, my culture, my religion, my society, my family, we do not eat, or we always eat these things. As a clinician, you've got to work with what's realistic.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, let's adapt.
Yeah.
And so there's ideal, then there's ordeal.
Yeah.
And
super important.
Diet's an ordeal.
Yeah. 100%
diet's an ordeal. So you have to work within the preferences. And then, and by the way, preferences can change. This model that I'm giving is actually the true model of diet, because it accounts for changes in life, ages and stages and states of health and lack of health, and shifting preferences and shifting ideologies and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a diet that actually is the meta framework for understanding how to optimize and customize one's own diet, or for your client base.
Mm-hmm.
So you had bottom layer genetics, second layer metabolic, third layer was preference. Fourth layer is access.
Oh, yeah.
Can you get the food or not?
Yeah.
Now, if you're in like Colorado near Boulder, there's a farmer's market every 2 hours.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, it's built into the culture of like organic, local, variety,
sustainable,
fresh,
source.
sustainable, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then for most parts of the world, there's a lot of food deserts and limited choices. And then there's also like access shifts with the seasons. Are you traveling? Mm-hmm. Are you going out to eat? Do you have the financial access? Do you have the time access? Do you have the logistics? Some people don't really have access to a fully functional kitchen. Like, they're sharing with, and like the kitchen's all, it gets all complicated in the kitchen. And like I ran a kitchen co-op when in college, and and there was definitely some challenges at times, you know, and and people have different diets, and then there's opinions and all the rest of it. Like, so access is it's seasonal, it's financial, it's logistical, it's time,
encompassing of all these different.
There's all these different
components
things around access, and so luckily there's a lot of the shipping capacities have really improved. You can order in bulk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for some people, one of the best ways to like buy like beef is to go in on a cow share and buy a quarter, an eighth, a quarter, a half, or a whole cow, and just buy a giant chest freezer, depending on the size one needs. And the cost of a pound of beef for all the cuts combined drops down to, depending on a number of variables of quality, location, and types and so on, can be somewhere from like $9-10 a pound up to like $15 a pound. But that's for all cuts, from steaks to roasts to ground, etc.
Yeah.
And you can save yourself a ton of money and by just buying in bulk, and it can be delivered depending. Again, there could be food deserts, but in modern day has allowed for drop shipping of a lot of different foods that were otherwise not accessible. And okay, so that's access, and then the peak, the thinnest part, the top.
If we're building a triangle for visual learners here,
we're building a triangle.
Yep. The
smallest one at the top is what I call the earth layer. So what is your perception of economics, the environment, and politics? How does your perception of those three things influence your food choices?
Yeah.
You'll notice I phrase that very delicately. How your perception of the environment, politics, and economics influences your food choices. I do not say what your perspective should be. I just acknowledge the reality that your perspective affects your food choices.
And again, why diet's an ordeal, not an ideal.
Correct.
Yeah.
And what happens is that most people, I think incorrectly, focus on the earth element of the environment, politics, and economics as their food choices as the top priority, when they should be looking at their genetics first. And then you can fit your larger concerns to within your own genetic reality, so you don't self-immolate on the altar of politics, economics, and the environment.
Because your genes do not change, and they're going to be the foundation for which you can achieve the health that most of us are desiring.
Totally.
Yeah.
So this model of earth metabolic preference access, genetic metabolic preference access earth, in that order, is that to me is the real way to chart, graph, and adapt one's diet. The piece that most people miss is the genetic.
Yeah.
The piece that most people want to tell everyone about is the earth layer.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny how those are so inversely related.
Totally.
Right. And of course, all of this is so important and useful for our listeners. And it all comes back to that foundational layer, which is genetics and the carb choice. So that just was, I know I'm a visual learner, so I appreciate that. And I think it's really applicable. And I would love to know now more about how that carb number can be applied in people's lives and what it looks like. How do you teach people about, you're a 2, I'm a 7. Like, how do we go about integrating this into our day-to-day, and what does it look like in a food form?
Absolutely. So when we're looking at someone's carb number, the easiest way to think about it is like 4 and lowers are considered lower carb, 5 to 8's moderate, 9 and aboves are higher. That's kind of the easy way to think about it. If people want to measure like what is the range in terms of percentage of daily intake as carbs,
I've gotten that question,
or the number of grams per day, there is research by researcher, lead author was last name is O-O-H, in a 2023 article. He's the one that detailed it's like 26% or intake less than 130 grams per day for the lower carb processing. And then there's the other range from 131 grams to... Genetic reports are powerful, but only if you can actually interpret them and your clients can really understand what to do and in what priority. If you're a health coach, clinician, or practitioner who feels buried in genetics pathways, complex list of SNPs, and jargon that never seems to end, you're not alone. At FitGenesUSA.com, we make genetics understandable and actionable. FitGenesUSA.com distills the complexity of genetics into practical frameworks that you can use the same day. Faster interpretation, clearer communication, and better outcomes without spending hours lost in the weeds. Whether you're supporting weight loss, optimizing diet, hormone balance, digestion, inflammation, or getting to the underlying cause of chronic issues, genetic clarity can change everything. FitGenesUSA.com also provides a unique genetic carb tolerance report to help determine whether your clients are better suited to a keto or paleo or Mediterranean or higher carb style diet. Make your practice stand out with this unique report. Save time and energy with clear, easy-to-read reports and upgrade your practice with precision genetics testing. Start now at fitgenesusa.com. Decode complexity, deliver results. So for moderate carbohydrate processors, it's between 26 and 44% of overall energy intake, or between 130 and 220 grams per day.
And that's not based, is there a basis on body, like stature, the question I'm asking is, does it differ between people, or does that amount of carbohydrate stay the same no matter you're a 5 foot tall female?
So the range, the range is between 26 and 44%. That's a pretty big range.
Yes.
And then the 130 to 220 grams is almost a double.
So that accounts for.
So it obviously there's going to be extremes.
Yeah.
You know, Andre the Giant versus Peter Dinklage. Like you've got you've got extremes and exceptions.
Yeah.
But this is where common sense and coaching come in. And this is also talks about the limitations of any type of scientific research that relies on a standard distribution or a bell curve. And like, this is the problem that I ran into, that I was doing Mediterranean diet because that's what the research said was Mediterranean diet, because that's what the research said. The research said this. Well, you know what? You know what the reality is about research? The research is based off of statistics that follow bell curves. And you know what defines a bell curve? The edges of the curve.
Yeah.
Some people are on the outside of the curve, like me.
Yeah.
And so you can't just careen and assume you're in the middle of the curve. You're just playing percentages, which is a strategy. It doesn't mean that strategy always works out. So then for people who are higher carb, it's above 44% or above 220 grams. Now, if people go in the report, I cite O et al.'s paper, and they're welcome to go in and read it. Actually, give the hyperlink. I had to go in and calculate based on the numbers he gave those ranges. So you can go in and calculate it based off the mathematics that he gave. So that's grammage. Now for people listening, it's like, I don't want to count grams. I don't even know what a gram is, as I don't follow the Queen's English. Like it's just, I was like, what do I do? Great question. Yeah. This is where I developed a rule called the finger rule. Now, this is a guideline. There's no paper to back this up. This is practicality. So there's science, and then there's clinician. Then there's being a clinician. Clinicians translate the science into something useful. In an ideal world, people would follow their grams per day, and there's such and such percentages.
And some people can.
Some people can, and good on them. And so some people, that's just not practical or possible. And so how do we moderate someone's carbohydrates according to their size? So let's go back to Peter Dinklage as an example. So I was watching, you need insight to how my mind works. I was watching, this is a true story. I was watching Game of Thrones. Okay. Thinking about genetics of diet. Yeah. And I was thinking to myself, because I loved Game of Thrones there's definitely some scenes I could have lived without seeing, and I needed several therapy sessions. But what I really admired, aside from the rich interweaving complex storylines, was the quality of the acting was unbelievable. And so you have Peter Dinklage, who played Tyrion Lannister. So Peter Dinklage is a dwarf, and so very short. And then you have the Mountain, played by Bjorn Bjornsson. That's his real name. And Bjorn Bjornsson is called the Mountain. He's literally the strongest man in the world, can lift over 500 kgs. Like that's about the small car. Okay, yeah. It's insane, and he is enormous. And then I watched an interview of Peter Dinklage say he and Bjorn are actually friends in real life. And so now in theory, both Peter and Bjorn could have the same carb choice number. Let's say they're a 7.
Technically, yep.
Okay, so does it? So like, if I were to tell someone, "Oh, you're 7," that means you need exactly 140 grams because you're a 7. Now that may be too much for Peter, and barely fit between Bjorn's front teeth. Yeah, like it's that's crazy making. Yeah. So to O et al.'s credit, there's a range. Yeah. But if you can't do the range, what can you do? Yeah. So I was watching Game of Thrones. I'm like, this is how can you make a rule of thumb that can accommodate someone's morphology, their size, their weight, etc. And then I remembered I used to teach X-ray analysis, and we actually in X-ray class you were taught dwarf osteology, because they have many differences in their skeletal structures, including the shapes of their finger bones. And then I was like, wait a minute, Peter Dink, dwarf finger. What scales roughly with height and weight? The size of your fingers. So
most of us have them.
Yeah. So Peter's longest finger is maybe 3/4 the length of my pinky.
Yeah.
But Bjorn's Peter's largest fingers, the longest finger is roughly the length, maybe 3/4 the length of my pinky. And Bjorn's longest finger is probably 3/4 the length of my forearm.
Yeah.
So what scales roughly with height and weight is finger size. So I was like, okay, if you're a 2, you get 2 fingers worth. If you're a 5, you get 5 fingers worth. If you're, and then I realized also that the fist is roughly like, I'm talking about the 3-dimensional space, the volume of the finger.
Yeah.
Not how many carbs can I stack up on 3 fingers, which is people have asked me. So
yes, I've gotten asked the how far off can we go from the fingers?
And then the negotiation begins, right?
And I say,
exactly. So you've got the volume of your fingers fill on a plate. So like 3 fingers worth, 4 fingers worth.
Yep.
And then the fist, if you take, your fingers and you put your fingers over the palm and your thumb over the base of the palm here. Your thumb is also counts as a finger. Basically, your fist is about 10 fingers worth. It's not exactly. It's a little more because the palm itself is thicker than the fingers themselves. But in round numbers, it's 10. Your fist is the 10. Why does that matter? Because your stomach is roughly the size of your own fist. So from just a volume perspective, I wouldn't really tell anyone to eat beyond 10 fingers worth or the size of your own fist, because it's not going to fit in your stomach.
Yeah. And this is per meal. So
maximum per meal. So here's a couple things that just for the clinicians listening. When someone has their carb choice number, they're not obligated to eat that amount of carbs every meal. Think of it more as like a reasonable upper limit. And if you have of high carbs, so now you've got the other variables. So you got the variable of how big the person is. Then you got the other variables like, is it a high carb or is it a low carb? What do I mean by that? Well, there's a difference between a Granny Smith apple and a Gala apple. Yeah. One is higher carb, one is lower carb. There's a difference between a grain and a Brazil nut.
Yeah.
Like
there's many types of carbohydrate.
Yeah. So they've got roughly higher carbs and lower carbs. Now there's some research out there that splits them into higher, lower, and medium carb. We're just simplifying it to high and low carb. If people want to nuance it, they're more than welcome to.
And for everybody listening, we have established the finger rule, and now just talking about the actual food sources of foods and what their composition of carbohydrate is and how that matters. Dr. Shay will share with us how that matters and plays a role into the finger rule.
Yeah, and there's also beautiful pages on the report itself that delineate between higher carb, lower carb, etc. So if someone's eating like potato is higher carb, grains are higher carb, but like blueberries are lower carb. Endive is a lower carb, etc. So the finger rule is 1x the amount of fingers as a maximum per meal as a rough gauge. Lower carb, it's 2x.
Higher carb for the 1x finger rule.
Yeah. So basically, if I'm a 5, or which I'm not, but if I'm a 2. It's like 2 fingers worth of like rice, or
which is like 1 or 2 sushi rolls,
depending on the sushi. Yeah, exactly. And or 4 fingers worth of like coconut flesh.
Which is a lower carb.
Lower carb. So then I've got up to 10, again, the size of my fist. So if someone is a carb choice of a 10.
Like one of my clients.
Like one of your clients. It would be like 10 fingers worth of high carbs or low carbs, because 10 is the limit based on the stomach size. Yeah. Approximately. Like, again, these are gauges. These are guides, not absolutes. So when people have their carb number, now they have a way to adapt to their body size and to the type of carbs they're eating. There's other things that you can do to adapt, because there's certain lifestyle habits that can increase or decrease the firing rate of the cannons.
And remember, cannons are your amylase.
What's the genes that code?
The genes that code the AMY1 genes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the number of copies of that. Now, you can increase or decrease the firing rate of these cannons through several means. One is exercise. So whether it's endurance or high intensity interval training, I found papers for both. That you have about a 2-hour window after you're done exercising. You have a 2-hour window where your amylase firing rate can increase by up to 500%. And so that means that you could temporarily, my 2 could temporarily be a 10. Temporarily.
Okay.
Now, that's important for athletes.
Yeah, super important.
And another note on athletes, it's in the report because I've seen this happen clinically.
Yeah.
People who are very, very athletic. Again, the person that this happened to was also a tennis player. He was a 2 like me, and he radically cut down his carbs, and he started to lose too much weight. Yeah. Because he was burning so many calories playing so much tennis. Yeah. Athletes may need more calories like carbs simply because they're just burning more of them.
More than their fingers worth genetically.
Correct. Yeah. Just because they're so athletic. Yeah. So that was a hard lesson learned that is included with a big old asterisk in the report. Athletes may need more. Yeah. And so just like be with all testing, like just be intelligent with how you apply it. And this is also why having a coach or practitioner working with you is so critical. So exercise is one way. Now, one way to optimize your carb tolerance, your carb digestion, is that you time your highest carb meal for within 2 hours of when you exercise. Now,
and this can be before or after?
After. Has to be after.
Has to be after.
Okay. Eating the carbs has to be after.
Okay.
Because the exercise generates the firing rate. Yeah. Okay. Now, I want a very important warning here. Don't make this a thing. In the sense that I had people write me back and say, "Oh my God, I have to exercise before I eat any carbs." Like, no, that is not what I meant. I'm so sorry. I did not communicate that clear enough. That is, I take full responsibility for not making that clear. So I'm making it clear here. Yep. If you want to optimize, then have your highest carb meal within 2 hours after exercising. That doesn't mean you must do that every single time. Right. That's what I mean by don't make it a thing. Yeah. Just if you can optimize, great. If you can't, don't make it a thing. And if you've been struggling with stubborn weight, low energy, inflammation, tried every diet, or just feeling off no matter what you try, there's a reason. Your body isn't broken. You've just never seen the map. The Fitgenes genetic blueprint and the CarbChoice Advanced profiles give you clear, personalized roadmaps for your health based entirely on your unique genetics. This isn't another diet. It's not guesswork. It's not a one-size-fits-all plan. With one simple cheek swab, you finally learn how your body is genetically predisposed to burn fat, handle carbs, detox, manage inflammation, balance hormones, recover from stress, and optimize energy. Instead of forcing your body into plans that don't work, you get a nutrition, exercise, lifestyle, and supplement strategy built precisely for your body, so you can feel more energy, drop inflammation, optimize your body shape, and feel amazing. To find the nearest Fitgenes practitioner near you, go to fitgenesusa.com. That's fitgenesusa.com. Don't be afraid of like eating a carb if you haven't exercised. Yeah. If it's appropriate for you to have carbs anyway. Yeah. So for just to add on to this, another clarifying question, for an endurance athlete, somebody who's done a 2-hour bike ride, right, versus someone who's done a 30-minute HIIT exercise, the
increase in carbohydrate can also differ based on the type of exercise you've done, despite it having the general rule of thumb to increase carbohydrate after 2 hours after exercise. I'm just trying to think of my different athletes and how they might take this and apply it, because I'm also thinking about of replenishing those glycogen stores.
Well, so on the report on page 15, the author, there's a 2014 and a 2024 paper by the same authors. The 2014, it's forgive the mispronunciation, Koibuchi and Suzuki. 2014 paper was on endurance and its relationship to amylase production, and then the 2024 was on high intensity training and amylase production. Same authors, decade apart. They both showed the roughly 500% increase.
Oh, so it's this.
It's the same. That's why I went in and dug and found the updated research from 2024, is because it's about exercise. It's not about the type of exercise.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's why I put it in there. So people. So to answer your question.
Thank you for clarifying.
Doesn't really matter according to the research that I have here.
Yeah.
So the other ways that you can increase or decrease amylase, the following. One, chewing. The reason why is that chewing will increase the amount of saliva that is now mixing with your food from the parotid gland.
Like we were talking about at the beginning.
Exactly. Because there's more time in the mouth to now mix with more saliva being generated by that gland with the attending amount of amylase. The other things that people can do are eating greens first. So eating greens, the bitter flavor will trigger the vagus nerve through cranial nerve 9 in the back of the tongue. And the vagus nerve will generate saliva, which then will bring with it the amylase. So this is where like eating greens first is a good idea, because that triggers digestive function, not just in the saliva, but in the rest of the digestive tract.
And we can save our carbs for last, because we can have a nice, almost treat-like style of eating. People always tend to eat their carbs first, but in order to support digestion, as a little tidbit, greens first, then your carbs last.
Is this like the Protestant eating ethic? Not the work ethic, but the eating ethic? We're just going to suffer first up front with our bitters?
You save the best for last. It makes sense.
Sure. So we're just going to transpose our work ethic into our dinner time. Got it. All right. The other thing you can do, because we already mentioned the exercise timing, is to savor your food. So savoring your food, this is what's called the cephalic phase, the cephalic a cephalopod. That's Greek, Latin, I forget, for the head, meaning it's the mental stage of digestion. That when you are smelling, enjoying, thinking about, you can salivate just by thinking about a good meal. You're literally salivating. You're literally triggering more amylase just by even thinking about it. Yeah. So if the more you enjoy your food, the more amylase is being produced because you're making more saliva to port it along with it. Then there's certain foods that actually increase saliva production. A lot of people know one of them. It's lemons, any type of citrus. Like if you if anyone is told, hey, think of sucking on a lemon, and automatically the mouth will start to salivate. Yeah. You don't even have to have the lemon. That's the cephalic phase. Then the lemon will actually do that on its own. So there's a whole section in the report that talks about the foods that increase amylase. Foods basically have citric acid. So these are things like lemons, limes, passion fruit, berries, tomatoes, guavas, pineapples.
And these are beneficial to consume before.
These are beneficial to
meal
trigger
time.
the production. Now,
so separate from exercise.
Yeah, these are I'm giving you a buffet.
Separate tools.
Yeah, the separate tools. Yeah, I'm giving you a buffet of things that people can do.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to do all of them.
Right.
It's just like here's the options.
Pick and choose what works best.
And also some options may not be best for people, because some people are very, very sensitive to histamine. Citrus fruits are not a good idea, even though they have citric acid. So there's also some people may be sensitive to nightshades. So tomatoes are not a good idea, even though they have citric acid. I mean, think of tomato sauce in pasta. The tomato sauce actually helps with the carb digestion of the pasta. So, all of the Italian restaurants in New York don't lie.
Yeah.
So, So you got foods that have high citric acid, and also like grapefruit has citric acid. But again, some people can't take grapefruit because they're on certain medications.
Yeah.
So just because a food is listed in a report on diet doesn't mean that food like a grapefruit is automatically good for you in your independent, unique situation. That's why it's important to work with a practitioner and common sense to adapt to your specific situation.
And likely why the DIYing is very frustrating for many of us, right?
Totally. Then there's foods that decrease amylase. And some of these foods maybe sound a bit odd. I thought they were good for me. So things like strawberries, blueberries, and black currants decrease amylase because they have polyphenols in them that decrease amylase production or can like dry out the mouth.
So all of our oatmeal, blueberry oatmeal lovers.
Not really great to combine them, but I'll teach you how to override it and like make up for it.
Okay.
So there's like strawberries, blueberries, blackcurrants. I'm not saying blueberries are bad. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the food's complicated, and in this specific way, the blueberries can suppress amylase. Yeah. They have all the other, vitamins and all the other good things about it, but like not. Some of the best foods aren't always an unambiguous net positive in all circumstances.
Right.
Pumpkin, beans, and corn lower amylase. Eggplant and red cabbage do. Black tea and wine.
Many people who do drink it first. Yeah,
that's not ideal. If you're having a carb meal, one thing you shouldn't do is have wine and a cigarette before. You shouldn't have cigarettes anyway, but you shouldn't have wine and a cigarette before a carb meal. You should have it afterwards. And why after? Because your carbs have had a chance to unimpeded mix with the saliva that has the amylase in it. Yeah. And then it's been mixed, and then it's already on its way through the digestion. And then if you shut down the amylase production of saliva after the fact, it doesn't matter because there's no more carbs coming through. Yeah. So if you are in a situation, whether by choice or circumstance, like you're out at a meeting or whatever, and it's just like that's what's there, then what you can do is look at the other options to increase amylase production and just do more of that. Chewing more, bitters first, enjoying your food more, like maybe grabbing a citrus fruit or something like a lemon or a lime or extra. So you can try to counterbalance these things. So those are the other things that can help with improving amylase are lowering stress levels, because then you'll have more parasympathetic activation to generate more saliva. Rest and digest, exactly. Improve sleep. That will help your digestion for a number of reasons, including better parasympathetic tone. We already talked about exercising. Hydration, because saliva is mostly water. Yeah. If you're dehydrated, you're not going to make enough saliva to carry the amylase with you. Yeah. Then on another section of the report, there's a list of digestive and carb metabolism recommendations. And one of the things that Fitgenes is unique about is that we don't recommend or push a specific supplement line. We rely on the coaches and practitioners and their judgment to pick on what's the appropriate product line and products within that line.
Considering the whole body mind person.
Everything. Yeah. Like it's just that it's like, but I want you to know what the ingredients show based on the research that affect carb metabolism. So you have a list of things that are supportive, depending on the needs of who you're working with. So for example, digestive support, you look at things like bitters, pancreatic enzymes, carb metabolism and sugar cravings. There's a whole raft of nutrients and vitamins and so on that help everything from like inositol to gymnema to vanadium and chromium and magnesium and manganese and cinnamon, berberine. Yeah. And then there's also resistant starches like green banana powder and arabinogalactin powder. And so you have that list there. If you know you need to support the carb metabolism or digestive support or the microbiome in some meaningful way, you have the list at hand that then you can engage with your client or patient around what can be done for extra supports. Yeah. And just a quick note, there's high carbs, low carb, high carb foods, low carb foods, and there's resistant starch. So resistant starch, those are more not calories for humans, but calories for the beneficial bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
And those are foods that are, some of them do have starchy carbs in the sense that they do have calories for us as well. Like there's chickpeas and rye bread and barley, but they also have resistant starch that provide air quotes calories to the beneficial bacteria
in the gut.
Yeah, and so you're feeding them on stuff that we can't normally eat.
Yeah. And that adjusts that. There's directions in the report for how that applies or doesn't apply to your carb number in the finger roll. So that was all very helpful. Mm-hmm. A lot of information packed into this episode. Do you have any final thoughts, words?
Sure. The CarbChoice Advanced report was one of the most important genetic findings that radically changed my life, and I would have paid anything to have had it, when I was 5 instead of 35. Mm-hmm. I grew up on a super crazy high carb diet in the 80s because partly my parents falsely believed that my cholesterol was too high and I was put on a low fat diet at age 6, and I was just eating honeycomb cereal and high gluten bread powder. It was just awful, and it was completely wrong for my genetic capacity. And it's one of the most important and influential epigenetic influences you can have on someone, which is what are they eating on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. And I designed this report because I want it to be a beautiful report that's actionable, easy to understand, and something that you can just implement. Yeah. And adapt to your specific meals and your specific situation. Mm-hmm. And this test is not something you can get through 23andMe or Ancestry because it's not a variation test. Mm-hmm. It's a copy number analysis. And the other thing this report has are sample 7-day recipe guides. So you can, your client, your patient can just get started with, okay, what is a copy number 1 diet look like? What is a copy number 3 diet? What is a copy number 6? What is a copy number 12? Yeah. That's included also in the report. So I really, 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 really wish that this was more well known. Yeah. And this is why we're talking about it, because it's so powerful once people actually know their carb tolerance. It can just change absolutely their entire trajectory of their health and their longevity. Yeah. Oh, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And we're going to continue to talk about it and bring it to as many people as we possibly can. Mm-hmm. And the report is beautiful. Thank you. I've seen it firsthand. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mikayla. And thank you, Lily. Thank you, Lily. See you soon. Bye, Lily. Thanks for listening to the Fitgenes podcast. If you're a practitioner or certified health coach or clinician, visit FitgenesUSA.com to confidently bring genetics into your practice and improve your clients' outcomes. If you're a health seeker or lifelong learner or biohacker, go to FitgenesUSA.com to find the nearest Fitgenes practitioner near you. If you got value from today's episode, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. Every 5-star rating helps others find this show and unlock the power of their own genetic blueprint. Until next time, remember, genetics doesn't have to be complicated. It just needs the right blueprint.